Kaf Yud Chesam and Aleph right at the top of the Amud. Continuing on with the placement of the Kelim and the formation of the Beis HaMikdash. Tani, we learned HaShulchan al Yanosin Mechatzi Bais Lifnim. The Shulchan was placed on the inner half of the Heichal. The entire length of the Heichal plus the Kodesh Kedoshim was 60 amas. The length of the Heichal was 40 amas, and the length of the Kodesh Kedoshim was 20 amas. So now when we say over here in the Braisa that the Shulchan was Mechatzi Bais Lifnim, it was in the inner half, meaning it's the half of the westerly half of the Heichal. We're talking about the length of the Heichal on its own, excluding the Kodesh Kedoshim. So the length of the Heichal was 40 amas. This was in the westerly 20 amas of the Heichal. It was pulled away from the northern wall 2.5 amas. It was not right up against the wall, the northern wall. It was pulled away from the wall 2.5 amas from the wall. The Kohanim had to go and remove the lechem aponim. They were opposite each other. The Kohanim removing the old lechem aponim, putting on the new one. They needed space between the wall and the shulchan. So it was 2.5 amas away from the northern wall. Umenara connected the bedarim, and opposite the shulchan was the menorah on the other opposite side, that was on the southern wall. Mizbech hazav haya nosan be'emsa, and the mizbech hazav haya nosan be'emsa bayis. The mizbeach was in the middle of the bayis. What does it mean in the middle? It was chelek es habayis mechatziv lifnim. It divided in the inner half. Moshuch kima klape chutz, but it was pulled away towards the outside, towards the east, towards the Pesach somewhat. It was pulled away somewhat, so that the shulchan and the menorah could be facing each other. So the shulchan and the menorah were in the inner half. They weren't at the halfway mark, they're inner half. And they were facing each other. The shulchan was to the north, the menorah is to the south. The mizbeach was pulled a little bit further away, so it did not block the vision between the shulchan and the menorah, so there was nothing blocking them. The mizbeach was further out, but the mizbeach was at the halfway mark. The shulchan and menorah were pulled a little further in, beyond the halfway mark, further in towards the west, towards the Kodesh Kedoshim. The kulon hayunusuna mishlish habayis lifnim, and they're all placed in the first third of the bayis of the house. So what does it mean, the first third? We said previously that it's the half. When we say over here, when we talk over here in the third, we mean in terms of the entire structure, the heichal plus the Kodesh Kedoshim. As was mentioned, the entire length of the Heichal Kodesh Kedoshim is 60 amas. So now, the halfway mark of the Heichal is 40, the halfway mark is 20. If it's 20, the 20 amas mark of the Heichal, that means it's 20 amas out of 60 out of the entire structure. It's a third of the entire structure. So therefore, they were all placed mishlish habayis lifnim, from the third and inwards and further west and inward, meaning the third 20 amas of the Heichal, from the first 20 amas of the Heichal and beyond, which is 20 out of 60, a third of the entire bayis. Continue on, Eser Menairas also Shlomo Melech also made 10 Menairas. So additional to the Menair of Moshe Rabbeinu, he made 10 additional Menairas. Shenemar Vayaz Es Menairas Hazav Eser Kimishpatim. Vayitin Behechal Chamesh Miyamin V'Chamesh Mismol. And he put 5 to the right and 5 to the left. So what does it mean to the right or left of what? In Temer Chamesh B'Tzav and Chamesh B'Dorim, if you're going to say he put 5 to the left of the doorway, 5 to the right of the doorway, that means that 5 of the menorahs were in the south and 5 in the north. That can't be. The menorah has to be in the south. The menorah was opposite the shulchan. It had to be in the south, not in the north. So small. So what does it mean? 5 to the right, to the left. Ella chamish mimin menorah shel Moshe b'chamesh mismaila. It means 5 to the right of the menorah of Moshe Rabbeinu and 5 to its left. But the only menorah that was burning, that was in use, was the menorah of Moshe Rabbeinu. Shenemra menorah zov menorah levar ber ber. It says the menorah zov to light be kindled every evening. Now it says it in the singular, so that means only one. So it's the menorah of Moshe Rabbeinu. But Rav Yehuda Imer, he argues, he says, no, al kulan hayamaver, they would rotate and use all of the menorahs. Shenemar was menorahs b'nei roisehem levarim kemishpat lifnei hadvira zov sagar. It says in the plural, the menorahs of the lamps to burn before the partition, closed gold. So we'll see what refers to the gold, what the type of gold it means to. That in the description of the gold we'll see shortly. But you see over here he says that it says it in the plural, and that therefore it means that they were all used. They were rotated and they were all in use. So regarding the gold, it says va'perach v'neres hamel kachayim v'amel kachayim zov hu michlois zov. It says the flowers of the lamps and the tongs of gold were all finished gold. Hein kilu zahavai shel Shlomo. This finished off all the gold of Shlomo. The Shlomo Melech used all his gold for this purpose, for these kelim. As the Forshim explained, it doesn't mean all the gold of Shlomo Melech, because Shlomo Melech, it says, in Kesam Nachshbimei Shlomo Lemeuma, he was exceedingly wealthy. What it means is this pure gold, as we'll see in a moment, this purest gold was all used for the Beis HaMikdash. Tani Rav Yehuda b'Shem Asi says, how did he make this pure gold, the special gold? He took 1,000 kikorim of gold, and he put it in the crucible to smelt it, to refine them, and he removed them. He would continually put them in and refine them, purify them, until from this 1,000 kurim, what was left, it was one kikar. So it was purified to 1,000th of its original form. Torah also that it was made from pure gold. It was the purest of gold. Tanya Rav Yossi bar Rav Yehuda, he says, Mayas menorah zov mikdash ha'isa yisera al menorah shasa Moshe b'midbar dinner zov. He said the weight of the menorahs of Shlomo Melech exceeded the menorah that Moshe Rabbeinu made by one gold dinar, by one dinar zov. That's what the weight exceeded. And they tried to refine it further. They put it in the crucible 80 times, one after another, continuing to try to refine it, but it did not diminish at all. It did not decrease at all. Meaning it was so pure, there was nothing more to refine it from. But how could that be? But no, it could be. It's possible. Before it reaches purity, complete purity, it keeps diminishing and it keeps decreasing in the weight. However, but once it reaches the complete purity, then it doesn't decrease anymore. So it reached its maximum purity, and therefore it did not decrease any further. Zok the Mishnah, Shleisha also Shafers Hayu B'Mikdash. There were 13 pushkas, there were 13 collection chests in the Beis HaMikdash. As we mentioned before, they were called shayfras because they were narrow on the top, wide on the bottom, to thwart the ramoyim. The cost of Aleim, and it was written on them, Tiklin Chadatit, New Shkolim, Tiklin Atikin. A second one was written on it, Old Shkolim. A third one was written Kinim, pairs of bird pairs, and Geisle Oila, and the young Oila birds. And another one was written Eitzim, wood, where there's donations were given for wood. And Levina, another one that was written on it, Levina. And the other one was written Zav L'Kaper, it's gold for the Kalim. And the remaining were Shisha L'Nadova, 6 for Nedavas. Now the Mishnah is going to explain what these different shayfres, these different chests, pushkas, what the purpose was for each one of them. Tiklan Chadatin, the one that's labeled Tiklan Chadatin, that's Tiklan Chadatin B'chol Shana V'Shana. The new shkalim that were had to be brought every year. Every year they had to bring the new shkalim for the chiyuv of the shkalim that were used for the korbanos tzibur. They put it in the chest that was written Tiklan Chadatin. It shouldn't be mixed up with other things. It was used for that purpose. Va'atikin, the one that was labeled Atikin, is Mishaloi Hevi, a person didn't leave Heshtaked, Shaikel L'Shanabah. If he didn't bring it the prior year when he was supposed to, he brings it now. He still has to bring it, but he puts it in a separate shayfer that's called Tiklan Atikin, old ones, because we didn't mix them together. Were used for different purposes. The new ones were used for the korbanos tzibur of that year. The old ones weren't used for that purpose. They were used for Bedek Habayis, but they weren't used for the korbanos. So it was labeled in a different shayfer. So the second one was Tiklan Atikin. Then the third one is Kinim. When it says Kinim, the one that labels Kinim Heim Tayrim. That was used. Kinim Heim Tayrim are the Tayrim that are personally made on the dova to bring Tayrim, the Tayrim, which were older ones and older turtle doves. It was put in that pushka. So that was Kinim Heim Tayrim, V'goizle Oila Heim B'nei Yoina. And the one that's labeled Goizle Oila, that's young pigeons, which is a different nedava. So someone who made a nedava to bring kinim, if he wanted to bring a nedava to bring Tayrim, he put it in that pushka. The one who said b'nei yaina, he made a nedava for that. He put it in a different pushka. Kulan oilas. All of these were oilas. All of these were nedavas. For oilas, these were not chiyuvim. Did Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says that the kinim that were chayvas, there were kinim that were also obligations. You had a yoleres, a zava, they have to bring a chayvas, obligations, one for an oil, one for a chatos. They weren't put in these. They were, according to Rabbi Yehuda, given directly to the kohen, but they weren't put in push, because we'll see in the Gemara why he holds they were not used, they did not have shayfres for them. So he holds that these, when it says the kinim and the b'nei yaina, they were all for nedavas and not for chayvas. However, the chacham argue and they say kinim, the one that's labeled kinim, echad chatas echad oila. There was a shayfer for the obligation for the chayvas. The one that was labeled kinim is for the chayvas, echad chatas echad oila. It was one for a chatas and one was oila, so the money that was deposited there had to be labeled. And goizle oila, kulan oilas. The one that was labeled oila and goizle oila are all for the nedavas, are kulan oilas. And here again, as the Meforshim speak out, it had to be labeled. So it had to be labeled, even though it said goizle oila, it had to be labeled, was the nedava for a pigeon or for a turtle dove? Was it a Tayrim or a b'nei yaina? So it had to be labeled. Why there wasn't a separate pushka for each one, it's not clear, but that's what the Chum hold. They hold that one of the shayfers was for the chayva, the other one was for nedava, and they had to be labeled. Continuing on, so the one was for eitzim, ha'imar relay eitzim, if a person makes a nedava to bring eitzim wood for the maroch to be burnt, to use for the fuel for the maroch, for the mizbeach. So he puts the money in that pushka of eitzim, but lo yivchais mishnei gzirim, he doesn't bring the money less than is needed for 2 blocks of wood. Levaina, he says levaina, he wants to bring in a nedava for levaina, lo yivchais mikaimetz. He doesn't bring less than what is needed for a kaimetz, for a fistful of the levaina. If that's an nedava he's bringing. Zov, he says zov, lo yivchas midinar zov, he shouldn't bring less than a dinar zov. Then the next word for nedava, shishal and nedava, 6 for nedavas. Nedava mayu oisim boy, what do they do with the money that was deposited in the ones labeled nedava leichem behem bo oilis? They purchase with oilas, habasal l'shem vayers l'kahanim. They would buy with this oilas, and the money would go to for the purchase of the oilers, the basar l'Hashem, the basar would be burnt on the mizbeach, and the oiros, the hides, the skins, would go to the kohanim. This is the drasha that he darshan, Asham hu Asham Asham Lashem. It says in the pasuk that it's an Asham Lashem. So it means to say, therefore, a person brings an Asham and goes to Hashem. But, however, we have another pasuk that says that kechatas kashim tarachas lahem hakoyin asher yuchupa boy loyeh. That another pasuk that says that it goes to the kohen. So it seems to be a stira. So how do we resolve it? Zeklal. This is the rule that he darshan kol shehu ba mishum chatas mishum ashma. Anything that comes for a chatas and ashma, meaning you have leftover money that was designated. Originally the money was designated for a korban chatas or ashma, but it was left over. You had excess money. What do you do with that? You lock behem oilas, with the excess money, with the surplus. You buy oilas habasul Hashem va'oiras lakahanim, and the basar is burnt on the mizbeach. The oiras hahides are the kahanim. Nimsu shnei ksuvim kayomim. Therefore, you can reconcile it. Both psukim are kayomim. It's there. Therefore, you have what? Osham Hashem. The Osham is to Hashem. That's as far as the basar goes. Osham l'koyin as far as the hides. V'oimer, and it says kesav Osham and kesav chatas lo yuva beis Hashem l'kahanim yu. It says the money of the chatas Osham is lo yuva beis Hashem. It's not brought to Beit HaKabayis. It goes to the kahanim. What does it mean that it goes to the kahanim? The Osham and the chatas. That what does it mean? It goes to the kahanim over here. So the money that goes to chatas and osham doesn't go to the kahanim. It's brought as a korban. What it means is that the money that's used, the excess of surplus money from the korban, doesn't go to Beit HaKabayis. The surplus money goes, and you're makrav it as an oila, and it goes. The skins, the hides, go to the kahanim. Zok the Gemara Tanya, Amrei Vama Rabbi Yehuda lo yashav shel kinu b'Yerushalayim mipnei hataruvas. Rabbi Yehuda, as we learned in the Mishnah, said that there wasn't a shayfer for obligations. There was no shayfer for chayvas. It was only for the nedavas, for the birds of the nedavas. Why is that? Because we're concerned of a taruvas. What's that? What is that mixing that we're concerned? Is Shema Thomas Achas, maybe one of the owners, one of the women who put the money in the shayfer will die, and you have a chatas over here. The chayvas are chatas. V'nimsu demei chatois mitzois muravas behen. The halach is halach l'meish misine that if a chatas, if the owner of the chatas dies, then the chatas goes lemisa. So if one of the women who gave the money for her obligation for a chayva, or any person who had a kinim of a chayva, gave the money there, and the owner and the person died, the money would have to be thrown to Yom HaMelech. It would be a chatos that meisabala. Now, if one died and we don't know who it is, that means all the money that was in the shayfer would have to be thrown to Yom HaMelech, and therefore would all have to be thrown out. And therefore, because of that concern, he says, don't put in a chayva. That might happen. We're concerned with that. And therefore, the chayva, which is for a chatos, has to be given directly to the kohen. What do you mean? If one says she takes upon herself a chiyuv to bring the bird pairs, mevia to make him an asana b'shayfer. She brings it and she puts it into the shayfer. And there she can eat the kachim that night. So she has a chiyuv to bring her korbanos for her tara. She makes an adov, she brings it, puts it in the pushka. We can assume that the kahanim were makravit, and therefore she's tahara, and therefore she's entitled to eat the kachim. And that evening she can rely on that and eat the kachim. And she's not concerned that the kain was lazy, was not diligent, and was not makriv the korban. She can rely on the kahanim's reason that they were makriv the korban, and she can eat kachim that night. and the Kohen is not concerned maybe one of the owners died, and maybe there's the mechatas mises that are mixed in. He doesn't have to be concerned with that, and he can rely on the fact that they're alive, and the chazaka that they're alive, and be makar the korbanos. Now this is Stam Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue over here. If Rabbi Yehuda argued on that and said there was a chashash of that, he should argue in the Mishnah. The Gemara answers, when does Rabbi Yehuda say that we're concerned about the taruvis? In a case when we know one of the owners died. So if we know one of the owners died, we would have to be concerned and therefore say that there's taruvis, and all the money would have to go to Yomi Melech. Now, therefore, what Rabbi Yehuda says, there's no shayfer for a chayva because it might turn out one of the owners died, and then all the money would have to go to Yomi Melech. All the money would have to be thrown out. Now, in a case where nobody died, then there's no concern over here. So, after the fact, if it turns out that we're not aware of anybody that died, then there's no concern. But what Rabbi Yehuda says, don't make a shayfer for chayva because it might happen that one of the owners died, and then all the money would have to be thrown out. If you do say that, even if you did say that one of the owners died, nivra arba zuzev nahara, just take 4 zuzim, any 4 zuzim, throw it in the nar, in the river, and the rest of them, it should be mutter. Because we should say breira, we should be soymach on breira, and say the money that now we're taking out, that money we attributed to the owner that died, and the rest of it should be mutter, so we'd be soymach on breira. And then why is he concerned with that? What it says, Hamrin Balma Rav Yehuda less like breira. But we know that Rav Yehuda does not hold a breira. He does not hold a breira, and therefore this is not an eitzah. Therefore he says, don't make a shayfer for chayva, because one of the owners might die. In a case where the owner died, all the money would have to be thrown out. So therefore, don't make a shayfer for chayva. Give the money directly to the kohen.